Good evening and welcome to news at release 9.1. Okay, welcome. Hopefully we're going to have a little look at what 9.1 has to offer, giving you a sneak peek preview prior to its release on the 22nd of December. A little bit of a history lesson, going back where we are now and where we were. When release 8.1 came out, we had the introduction of video and security with the SBC and the acquisition of Radvision. When release 9 came out, that gave us virtualization on the server edition and contact centers, and we had two of those with the IPOCC and the ACCS. With the fantastic introduction of release 9.1, we now have got increased capacity, lots of more collaboration, and a cloud and hosted offering for IP Office. Here are the titles of what we're going to be looking at today. We have mid-market, contact center, UC and video, web management, some key features, and about security. Now, rather than you going death by PowerPoint, we are going to introduce some of this into a live feed of exactly what we're showing. So, the first subject we're going to be looking at is the mid-market. And the first thing is going to be scalability. What's happened with scalability? Okay, we had the basic edition, which as we know can introduce and goes up to 100 users. We then had the introduction of Essential Edition, which then gave us the 384 extensions on one system. But again, no collaboration and no desktop applications. Applications and desktop integration was brought to us by Preferred Edition. And the next one prior to this release, you would have noticed, would have been Advanced. Advanced Edition has gone. There is no Advanced Edition whatsoever with release 9.1. CCR has gone completely out of it. We have Server Edition, which we've had for a while, but the new one that's come out with release 9.1 is Server Select. And we'll go into some detail about what Server Select gives you in a minute. Here is a quick snapshot of what Server Select gives you from this list. The ones that we need to make sure we know about are up to 2,500 users. That's probably the biggest one. A great increase in the number of users on the system. That's also on one single server. So we can now increase the number of users from 1,500 users to 2,500 on one single server. Also, the number of sites that we can have those servers connected was 32. That's now increased to 150 sites. A great improvement in the number of sites that we can have. Not only can we have a single server capacity, so 2,500 users all on one server, we can have all of those can now be UC. So all of them can have the OneX portal application nicely running. Number of ports to do with conferencing has also increased up to 512. So we now have 512 secure ports of Meet Me conferencing on the Server Select Edition. We also have VMware High Availability, failover of expansion servers to IP500, which now allows us from, if the handsets are registered to the primary server, unlike release 9, they had to fall over to another server, they can now fail over to an IP500 gateway. We have remote worker resiliency, so users working from home, and also DECT R4 resiliency. Anyone using an R4 DECT phone, if a system falls over that they are connected to, that also can now connect to a separate server. Great improvements. Let's have a look at enhanced resiliency, just for a few minutes. Okay, I mentioned that you can have 2,500 users all on the primary server. They can all fail over to the secondary server now. Ability for a specific group of extensions to fail over to another expansion system. As I said, that can also now be onto the IP500. So unlike where you said you had to have all extensions fall over from one system to another, they can a group of extensions can fall over to a separate server. And we've got load balancing of the voicemail pro systems now, which is a great improvement. VMware High Availability. Well, as it says on the screen there, it restarts the virtual machine on another host within that cluster. We also have support for that single primary server and for support for a standalone 1X portal. Please note, the VMware HA and IP Office VM Pro Resiliency are not simultaneously enabled. Contact Center. We had 2 contact centers released with the release of 9.0, and IPOCC has got some improvements to it straight away with this release of software. The first notable one is the number of agents that you can have now expands from 100 up to 250 agents. Okay, and that is on a single server deployment. Also enables a great number of IPOC capacity for the IP Office for the server edition deployments. Again, still supporting 100% call recording, but please note, right at the bottom there, the IP Office base license, number of agent stroke supervisors combined together cannot exceed 30. That remains unchanged. But it does put it on par with the ACCS product and gives you 2 contact center offerings to offer your customers. A notable change, and probably not too much for the salespeople out there listening, but the IPOC database has now moved literally from the Sybase database to Postgres. It's probably the only noticeable change that you need to make a note of on that presentation there. It's using Postgres as a replacement database. And for the engineers out there, the migration of this deployment, it's literally the same as what you would do as if you did a backup. We do have some UC and video enhancements. As it says there, web collaboration, IP Office Video Softphone, Receptionist, a link plugin, mobility enhancements. Let's have a look at those. So the first one we're going to look at is Hunt Groups. Hunt Group queues. Now on Receptionist, we've always had the Hunt Group facility. And a lot of people requested that this facility was added to the 1X Portal Office Worker and above. It now gives that facility. On the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, you can clearly see, around the red box, the Hunt Group queue. I'll make that a little bit bigger. So here we have the Hunt Group queue, and we can clearly see the number of people queuing for each department. Here we have 2 teams, the Travel Department and the Tourism Department, each clearly showing the number of users calling in and also how long that person's been waiting for. Now you can, using the drop-down box, show different criteria on that, and we will be showing that when we go to our live broadcast and show all of that. We can see that in a live scenario. If you want to make that bigger, we can do so by making it large full screen, and here we can see the number of groups on the left-hand side, showing clearly all the users, whether they're on the phone, how many people are taking a call, etc. A little bit of like an ACD wallboard scenario coming along there. Conference scheduling, a new feature. If you remember going back sort of 5 to 10 years ago, we did have conferencing with the IP Office. Great feature when it worked, but that was the trouble when it worked. Now this works every time, no questions asked. As you can see clearly on the screen here, where the red box is, that shows the new box that comes with the 1X portal under conferencing. Let's make that one a little bit bigger. Here you can see the conference scheduling box. You have 3 tabs that you can use: the calendar view, schedule a conference, and meetings view. On the calendar view, you can clearly see you can choose the view of what you want to look at by either 1, 3, 5 days or week. Next tab along is the schedule a conference. Here we will put all the details of what the conference bridge we wish to use, the start time, the finish time of that conference, and a brief description to invite people in. Where it says participants is where you would add email addresses and numbers of those people you wish to fill in. We'll see this in greater detail when Richard goes and does the live transmission of this. And the last tab is the meetings view. Here you can see these are all the meetings that we have scheduled, who's hosting them, when they're hosting them. We make that one a little bit larger. You can see clearly here, it shows you the date, the time, who's hosting it, how many people, and you can hover over it and look at the controls for it. You can, as it said, make this conference a rescheduled, a reoccurrence, by simply putting in how often you want it to be to recur on a daily, weekly or monthly basis, also every day, and when you want the recurrence to finish, just like you would when you send a meeting invitation out from your general Outlook calendar. When you receive the email, it looks like this. Here you can clearly see you have an email showing you all the information for the participant to join, for the link, the telephone number to dial, and they can join in. Simple and easy using Outlook. Web collaboration. This is all part of the one thing really. Web collaboration from your conferencing or from your 1X portal server integrates with the audio conferencing. Desktop application collaboration, so I can collaborate and share everything on my desktop as well as an application. Document sharing. I can share a document and share that with everyone on the conference call. We can amend that document and save it in the library using the whiteboarding session. Here's a quick picture of what it looks like. Here you can clearly see where all the whiteboarding takes place, participants in the conference, and you can see people can join, they can share, we can share from a library, we can actually share the desktop. Once we've got a document open, we can then draw some smiley faces, etc. Maybe a little bit better pictures than those, but we can draw something from there. We can also do this from other applications as well, such as the desktop flare, which is now called something completely different. So here you can see this is where the library is, showing the documents that are in our library. We can import them in. There is a maximum number of size for those documents. They must be no more than 6 meg, and you can only have 10 documents per user. And any document, regardless of what it is, can be saved as a PDF, JPEG or PNG file for photos. Here is all the documents you can see here. We can pick up the documents and bring them in. This page is showing the reports. Once we've had a session, we can report on who was on the meeting, the chat, what they looked at, when they joined, when they didn't join, what they did. So we can report on that post-session. As I said, you can join by a conference using the Avaya Communicator, previously called Flare for iPad, does exactly the same and looks exactly the same. From the Outlook plugin, you can also do web collaboration. Here's an example of a screenshot. Here's my plugin on the side. I now get that extra button, extra highlighted link that says Join Web Conference. Click on the link and that will then take me to the URL. I can also join that conference from within 1X portal. I don't have to wait. If I know there's a conference going on and I should have been joined into it, I can click on this new icon that's now shown on the 1X portal. The others are the existing ones that you've seen before, making a call, conference and chat. But this little icon is new. You can also see you can do it from the top. If you look at the top of the screen there, just next to your conference button where it says link 01230, there's also a button there. As with everything on IP Office, there's not one way to do it, there's several ways, and it's down to the individual user to choose how they wish to connect to the web collaboration. Scheduling conferences, an example here, you can schedule a conference from your Outlook or from a web browser. Doesn't matter which one you use, the result is the same, people still will receive that email. We do have a communicator application or soft phone. And here's an example of the new soft phone. Richard again will be showing this in a brief second. You log on to the communicator using your extension number and password. Once logged on, you have 3 options, or 3 tabs. You can look at all the users available on the system, you can look at the history of the tab, and you can do conversations, IM chats between one and the other. You can pick up your voicemails, you can have this minimised, you can do lots of extra things what you say. We'll demonstrate this in a few seconds. Presence, IM, you can say if you're available or not available. And don't forget you Mac phone users out there, we do have the soft phone for Mac users as well that supports the latest version 10.8 or higher. but no longer supported on the Windows platform. So everyone, if you've got an existing license, then this will migrate across to this straight away. All you need is the actual Wonix Portal Office Worker Teleworker license or above, power user license. Before we go on to anything else, let's demonstrate how all these applications work in real time. So let's go to our broadcast unit, Richard. Richard.
Thank you, Ray, in the studio. Good afternoon. Right, I'm just going to get my desktop up so you can see it.
Hang on, moderate, set lecture. I think you should be able to do it now. Come out and back in.
2 seconds.
2 seconds. Our outside broadcast unit is having a few technical hitches here. Could be the weather. They'll join us shortly. Just go to
There we go. Right, there we go. You can see my desktop. So the first thing I'm going to do, let's look at Communicator first. We'll get a preview of that. So at the moment, Communicator is small. You don't see a lot about it. It's inconspicuous. You'll only see it when you need it. So I'm going to phone into it from another phone. You see at the bottom of the screen, we get a little icon come up saying, do you want to answer the call from Santa? So we're going to go yes. We're going to answer that call. Now we get Communicator. Hopefully you can all see that. Let's move that into the middle of the screen to make that a bit clearer. So we've now got our phone. It hasn't taken any space. It hasn't bothered you what you're doing. It will stay on the top so we can use it when we need to. We can see who's phoned us. We can expand that into a video call. We can't do that at the moment just because my camera's being used by Scopia. We can phone someone else. We could dial another number. We could go to our contacts. We can now find anyone else in the system contacts or on Outlook. We could even transfer just by simply dragging and dropping the call into that pane there. So you can see that hopefully. We're taken back. We can obviously hold the call. We can make a new call. So let's drop this call. So I'm going to go into Santa. We're going to get rid of Santa. I'm talking to Santa at the moment. Go into our contacts. So we're going to find someone else to call. So I'm going to let's find one of his reindeers and give them a call. We can phone from there. It's easy. It's a simple product. We can see all our other contacts. We can see our system contacts. We can see our personal contacts. You can create your own personal contact groups. We can see what you'd expect to see on a phone. We can see your missed calls, your lost calls. So we can see our call history and we can filter that. So we can see incoming calls. We can also see IM messages that you've had before. So if we go to a system contact, well, I am someone. Let's IM Santa because I know he's alive. He's there.
I am there.
So we've got RIM. You can also drag and drop someone else into that conversation if you need to. So you've got multi-party conferencing. IM. That's Communicator. So we've now got a phone working on our desktop. You can also use your desk phone if you need to alongside this. So we're going to close that down. We're now going to show you some of the apps that Ray was showing you before. So we're going to go to Wonix Portal. And the first thing we're going to see is the group queuing. So I'm going to make a call into a group, and we're going to see the indicator come up to show we've got a call. So as we can see, if I get my little paintbrush out, you can see El's workshop there. We've got a call ringing. But let's make it a little bit bigger. So we want to see exactly what's going on in these groups. We click the expand button. We can now see our groups again. We'll get a few more calls coming into it. You can now see we have 3 calls on that group. And it makes, if you've got a wallboard, you can't pick up calls from this, although it's just showing you where the calls are ringing. You can order it as well and who's been ringing the longest. You can do it by group, by person. It's a handy tool. It's not perfect, but it's better than what we had. We can also do our conference scheduling. So on the bottom left-hand side here, we look there, that's our conference scheduler. So let's take my paintbrush off. We'll do what Ray showed you earlier on. We'll schedule a new conference. It's a bit small at the moment, so what we'll do, we'll open up the screen so you can see exactly what it does. So the first one we've got our calendar view to show you any conferences that are in progression at the moment. We can see our meetings, so any meetings you have that are actually going on currently. And we can schedule a conference. The contacts from here also come from Outlook, so it's not just your system. It's also your Outlook you can get it from. You can add people that you haven't got as contacts as well, just by putting their name in here, so new user. And you only put as much information as you need. If you only want to put them into a phone conference, only put their number in it. If you want to add them into a web conference, you're going to need their email. So we put their email in, we'll cancel that. And as Ray showed you before, we've got our bridge ID, we can put a participant code in, we can put a host code, we can put our description so then you know what the meeting's about. We can add a web conference to this, we can email a report to yourself, and we can set this up on a regular basis so it's not just a one-off event. What we're going to do now we've set up our conference, we're going to go to one I prepared earlier. And to get to a conference from your own desktop, there's several ways of doing it, because you might not all be using the website of this, but from the website, all you do, you go up to the top and you tick on those two little boxes there. We'll double click on that. Automatically goes into your own conference. It knows your ID, it's ready to go. There we go, you can see very quick. We've now got our desktop sharing open. If anyone had joined before we'd open that, they would be waiting for host. And as soon as we join, they're in. So on the left-hand side, my little paintbrush again. In fact, we won't use the paintbrush. Let's start sharing it, and I'll show you that way. So the first thing we'll do, we'll start sharing the entire screen. So we'll launch our desktop sharing application, and that's actually working now. You can see around the side of the screen, you've got a red bar to show you what you're sharing. We can now get an indicator out to show what's going on. So up the top there's our selection of what we want to display. Over here is the participants in at the moment. We've got Santa and myself. Down the bottom, we can take minutes for it. We can take messages. We've got your library of documents and what you're sharing. We can add people mid-conference as well. Let's get rid of that. And what we're going to do next, we're going to do some drawing. So we can now draw on the desktop. So let's choose a new colour. So as I'm sharing my desktop, I can now start sharing more information with you. So we can go like, and you can draw really badly, and hopefully all of you will draw better than I do. We did actually try to put some baubles on this last time, but there we go. There's no take heart. But there we go. So we're going to stop that sharing. We're going to change the sharing to a different method. So what we'll do now, we'll do a whiteboard. So I think you would do drawing from. So you've got our whiteboard. What we can now do, we can create squares. We can do the one thing you expect. We can get a circle. We can do our painting still. But then, everyone on your, if you want to send anyone the information, if you've done a network diagram over here, you've been whiteboarding with someone, and there's some useful information rather than just free squares, what we can do, we can then send that out to someone. If I go to the top, if I press the little square button there, we can send this out to everyone on the conference. So do you want to send this current screenshot to all conference participants? Yes, I do. So we can then email it to it. What they will do, they'll get a message, like below, with a link to where to pick that up from, and they'll get the JPEG of that meeting. Let's close that down. Also, I said there's several ways to join this. Obviously, you're going to get an email with a link to go straight to it. You can also join it from your Outlook plugin. So if I go to the Outlook plugin, which is the favoured method of using OneX Portal, because you're already using Outlook, why not? We've got our system contacts in here. If we go to any internal user, so if I'm an internal user and I want to join one of their conferences, if I go to someone here, you can see we'll have, let's get a user, join web conference. So we can join straight from Outlook easily. We can even schedule a conference from Outlook. So if I go into Outlook, press the plus button, and there we've got all our participants. We can add them into our conference. We can do exactly the same we've done from the web portal. So it doesn't matter what tool you're using, you get all the same facilities. And that's the majority of the conferencing and the new additions we've got to this. The Outlook plugin hasn't changed a great deal, to be honest. We've still got our normal, we've got our system contacts, we've got our Outlook contacts, we've got our IM messages, which is obviously they're backed up, so you've always got a record of these, and an administrator can get to them. We've got our voicemail messages, we've got our call logs. Just now we've got the addition of call conferencing, as well as on here. And that's the new additions to the user interface. I'll hand you back to the studio.
Thank you, Richard.
Pleasure, Ray.
Take over. No. Okay, couple of improvements to the receptionist. We'll just go through those. As you can clearly see, on the receptionist, First thing you need to be aware of, it's now increased. We've now got up to 32 occurrences of the receptionist or soft console license available on the IP Office, or 50 on the Server Select version. So it increases it dramatically. You also have the availability now to IM. So we always can IM between Office Worker and Power User and the mobile workers, but we couldn't ever IM between those and the receptionist. We now can. They now have the facility to have IM between themselves and all the other users. Mobility. We do have some changes to the mobility as well. First of all, we can now move calls from VoIP to callback and vice versa, which obviously allows us to have call recording, but that gives us call recording support where we can turn recording on or off on mid-call, depending on whether or not we wish to. Some of the other ones here you can clearly see. We can now geo-presence for XMPP groups. Automatic fallback mechanism for VoIP to mobile callback. A mechanism to move calls from one to the other. But the other one is geo-presence for XMPP groups. So unlike what we can do currently on Release 9, we can see individual users on a map, on a Google map, walking around. And now we can see a number of users, multiple users on the same map, so we can see where a number of users are available. Probably handy for some service engineers. You want to see more than one service engineer. You can now see several on a group. We've had this for a while, the Microsoft Link plugin. It was originally destined to come out with a release 9.1, but came out under a service pack release 9003. It's the Microsoft Link plugin. It's been around for a while. Just sort of reiterate some of the points there. It works with Link 2010 and Link 2013. Its little add-on sits at the bottom. You still will need a 1x portal server running. That talks to the Microsoft Link server, but just gives you that little add-on on the bottom of the Microsoft Link to make the phone calls. Doesn't make it this Microsoft Link into a soft phone because it just enables the desk phone to make that call. Web management. We do have some improvements on the web management of IP Office. We can expand this by showing you a couple of this, but you can actually do some end user management. The user can now make changes to their own profile on the end user, and also the web management of the actual phone system. There are some extra fields that were not there previously. Let's have a look at those. Probably the biggest ones are the top four here. Biggest ones are the top four here. Let's get a look at those, get this right. You can now have users, extension, groups, auto-attendant, and shortcodes on the web management of this. We'll be showing this in a couple of seconds. We get a dashboard which shows us a summary of the system and a pictorial view of what's connected, or more importantly, what isn't connected to the phone system. We now have synchronization from LDAP and support also Active Directory integration. End user self-management. Users can now make changes to their own profile. Obviously, those changes need to be set by the administrator at what they can and can't do. Let's have a look at some of that. So here's a web management tool here, clearly showing shortcodes now, which we didn't have before, incoming call routes, time profile, system directories, number of changes and extra boxes that we didn't have on the web management. And this is available for the IP500 v2 and the server edition. Here's that pictorial representation of the expansion modules. You can clearly see what modules you've got. It shows them there. And more importantly, if you hover over those ports, it will show you what is connected and what isn't connected in the way of handsets, both digital and IP. But it doesn't show you the analog ones. That's the only ones it doesn't show you. LDAP and Active Directory. We don't have integration with LDAP. It does provide, as it says there, provisioning of users through LDAP synchronization. Can be run on demand or as a scheduled job if you wanted it to. What LDAP servers we connect to are shown here. So you can see Active Directory 2008-12, Open LDAP, IBM Domino, Novell, Sun1, and the actual fields that it actually does update are the name, the full name, the extension and the email address. Unfortunately, the Active Directory integration is only available on the Select version, so you will need to have a server to get with the Select mode to actually get that. The end user self-administration, great feature, long time waited for. It enables the users to actually change their name, their password, their mobility settings, customise button programming, and import and export of personal contacts. As you can see here, depending on what the administrator has set and what they can and can't do, they have visibility to either look at things or write and make changes. All of these settings are changed by the administrator of the 1X portal. From the user, you will go to the web page, log in with your username and password. This will give you a desktop profile of showing you all of these, and if they're greyed out, that would mean that you haven't got access to make any changes, just view only. You can even download some of the desktop software from here, as long as it's been imported into the central server. You can download all of this software. So let's have a look at some of these features live. Richard, let's go back to the outside broadcast unit. Richard.
Thank you, Ray. Right, I thought we'll start with the administration. Largely, you've seen most of it. There's no great surprises going to come out of this. But all we've added, as before, what we had just users and hunt groups. That's all we could change. Now they've added a few more things. A lot of engineers are still going to want to use the actual manager, like I do, but we've got a lot more scope here, and I'm starting to use this more and more. We've got our users, which we've always had. We've got our groups, which we've always had. We've also got extensions, so the physical extensions as seen on the system. And when you create a user, it'll ask, do you want me to create an extension for you? We can go across to the system settings. We can now do shortcodes from here. We can do incoming call routes. So we can do a large amount of programming just from here. We can create a user, we can create a hunt group, and we can get a call into them. We can administer the system directory. We can also change time profiles. As you can see, we're getting more and more. There's not a lot more now you can't do from the web manager. Let's go through some of this and I'll show you how we use it. We're going incoming call route. Nice and simple. Add incoming call route. We pick the system we're going to do it on. Press OK. There we go. It's a format we're pretty much used to on an IP office anyway. It's just a quicker way of doing it. And also it means two people can administrate the system without overwriting the changes that you're making, which a lot of engineers will be familiar with. We've also now got the user administration. So from the day-to-day tasks that an administrator is going to get bothered with, can you change my twinning? Can you take my do not disturb on and off? Can you change a button? That can all be by a user. So I'll show you how we administer that. So we can do it under the web management, but this is the manager as most people are used to. So I've gone to a user, go right to the very end, web self-administration, and as Ray showed you, we're going to show what you can and can't do. We're going to say this user can do everything. He can change his voicemail, his D&D, his forwarding, his mobility, his directory, and his button programming. We then go to a user, we log on, and it's an easy format as well. This is easy to use. We can change the name as it would appear on the phone. We can change their passwords. We can change their locale so their voicemail will come out of a different language. Unless they've done the greeting themselves, obviously, it's not that clever. We can change their voicemail. We can change their voicemail to email address. We can change how the voicemail is going to be sent. Is it going to be sent purely to their Outlook, or is it going to just be an alert? We can put their do not disturb on and off. Generally, I imagine there's a lot easier ways of doing this, but it can be done from here. We can also put our D&D exception list in. A very useful one, which we find a lot here, which people are always asking us to do, is the twinning. So in twinning, we can set our mobile twinning number. We can set our turn it on and off, which is great. If you go home and you've got access to this from home, and you're getting your mobile calls are still being twinned, you can turn it off easily. You can add users to your personal directory. Obviously, if you've added them from any other field, it will show you your directory in here. And probably the one that's going to be most contentious, whether or not you're going to give it to someone, is button programming. But it's easy to do. What we could do, as you can see, our appearance buttons there are locked. You can't change these, they're locked down. So you could still lock down the first 8 buttons and just give them access to the ones after that. So they could go in and they can, with a little bit of training, we could put a user in there, pick the user you want to have a BLF for, and we're done. It's not a difficult task. With 10 minutes training for most users, it's going to stop a lot of the admin tasks an administrator will get on a day-to-day basis, especially on a larger site. If you do have the 1,000 users to 1,500 users, the amount of requests that will generate could be reduced greatly by having the ability to do it themselves. And that's the majority of the admin features they changed, to be honest. Any questions, please let us know at the end. But as you can see, most of it's simple to use, and there's not too much to get to grips with. Thank you. Back over to Ray.
Thank you, Richard.
My pleasure, Ray.
Okay. Some of the key features that have changed with hardware, so a couple of hardware and changes. Let's have a look at those. First thing is, there is a new UCM module, UCM module V2. Probably the biggest thing that needs to be pointed out on here is decoupling of the preferred edition license. So this allows the ability for people to upgrade seamlessly without the need for having to buy another preferred edition license all again. Also, there's some improvements to the LED and state for the engineers and diagnostics, and also this unit's a lot faster than the one before. We also have some new SIP trunk templates. Should assist a lot of the engineers quite a lot with creating SIP trunks from a provider that they use day in, day out. So with these, the templates, an engineer could go to site, set up his Gamma or VoiceFlex or whoever's SIP trunk they're using on that customer, and once they've saved that particular as a template and export it, which means they can do all the setup again for the new user again by just importing it onto the new user and just changing a few changes. Really, really handy for the engineers and should make up the setting up of SIP trunks a lot easier for them. With DECT R4, previously what happened, if you had a DECT R4 system and the base station, the base station was connected to the IP500 or server edition, if that server edition on IP500 fell over, so would the base station, and you would lose connectivity of your DECT. Now, from release 9.1, you can tell the base station to fall back to another unit, another server edition or another IP500 for connectivity, giving full resiliency for all IP devices on an IP Office now. GRIP requests. What are they, you may ask? Okay, if you've got any customers who continue to say, or you come up with some suggestions, wouldn't it be great if the IP Office could do this? Well, that's what GRIP requests are. It's an open forum website whereby you can put requests in that you'd like the IP Office, either Server Edition or IP Office 500, to do various different features. And if enough people say to them, but enough people put them in and Avaya go, oh, I like that, that's really good, well, let's put that in, then they do. And as you can see, with release 9.1, we've got more than 50 GRIP requests from previous requests where people wanted, I want this feature and that feature. And here's just a small summary of them. To see the full amount, then please look at the 9.1 release notes, clearly showing all of the GRIP requests that are out there. Okay, the last section we're going to look, penultimate section we're going to look at is security. What's happened with security on the IP500? Okay, well, the most important thing is they've increased the platform and application hardening. What does that mean? It just means that now you can no longer leave the system with default passwords in anywhere. You have to change them. This is a great thing. It stops fraudsters coming into your system and hacking in, either via your SIP lines or from the administrator. So it's a great improvement. It just makes sure that you have to change all of those details. So it prevents, as it says, fraud. So the default service account has to be changed. The default password has to be changed. SIP auto-registration changes have to be changed. All have to be done there in default. You cannot leave it there. It literally will not keep coming up with a red mark saying you must change this, you must change this. It's a great feature. Licensing. There are some changes to the licensing, and we should quickly go through those. Okay, if you've got a current system that's currently on release 9.0, then obviously you'll get your IPOS, and you have IPOS on it, then during your IPOS will give you your 9.1 upgrade. If you have a server edition, again, and that's currently on release 9.0, you will get your server edition upgrade free of charge if you have IPOS to 9.1. Please note, what you won't get is the server select upgrade. That is at a small nominal fee, yet to be decided, but you will need to purchase that upgrade for the server select mode. Some more details around the licensing. If you do have the old version of the soft phone, then that will migrate upwards to the new version if you want to. But probably the only thing to look at on this page is the Avaya ACCS Select. If you have existing ACCS deployment in Release 9, it will or may stop working when you upgrade you to the new 9.1. That's because the licensing is changing from the ADI system to the PLDS. So if you are going to upgrade an existing ACCS system, please make sure that the licensing you've got is PLDS licensing and not ADI. If you do have any ADI, please contact your account manager or use your IPOS to ensure that you get the relevant licenses. Okay, probably the biggest thing to mention here, ADI is eventually going, so all the licensing that is on ADI will move to PLDS. But the important thing there is the upgrades. As it says there, pay particular attention to the IP500 v2 systems that may contain hardware which is no longer supported with this release of software and replace as necessary prior to upgrade. What do I mean with no longer supported? Let's have a look at the kit that's no longer supported. Okay, list of systems are shown here. So unfortunately, any IP500 v1 chassis will not support release 9.1, nor will any of the IP400 modules that you can see there. So the analog ones, the digital ones, none of those, the DS v1s, v1s will not be supported. The only IP400 modules that are going to be supported moving on are the DS v2s and the phone module v2 modules. And if you're not too sure what a customer has got, then by looking at the configuration file of that system, an engineer or support here at Westcon can clearly tell you what one you've got and whether it's not supported. Also that's not supported are the legacy card carriers. So if you've got an existing system with legacy card carrier, even a V2 system that's currently got that with any of the PRIs or the VCM cards, that is no longer supported. Nor, as it says there, the CCR Advanced Edition, no longer supported, or the video soft phone. If you do have the video soft phone, then please make use of the upgrade to using the new communicator. And if you do have CCR, then you can use the migration promo that runs out in September 2015, but it runs currently running, which will migrate any CCC or CCR customers up to IPOC currently. Full details of that can be available on the partner portal. A little bit on the roadmap. What's coming up? What do we know about? As you can clearly see here, IPOC, one of the things, has got some great new facilities coming up. Probably the most important one is that it's going to go virtualised. We know it's going to 250 agents now, but it's actually going to go virtualised. So we're going to have a virtual 9.1. It's going to be on probably the first to second quarter of 2015. With ACCS, okay, probably the biggest thing there is, let's have a look at that. Probably the biggest thing out of that one. Oh yeah, the number of users. Currently, if you buy ACCS, you have to have 30 agents minimum, one supervisor and one multimedia. This is now coming down. It does say December 2014, but it's more likely to be early next year. It's actually reducing down to 10 voice agents, one multimedia, one supervisor. So in other words, you're going to have 2 contact centres, both starting at 5 or 10 users, and can go up to 250 users. Again, it's going to be down to what the customer wants and a couple of other different features between the two. Also, we've got hosted. IPOCC is going on a hosted platform, supported and following cloud platforms. It says they're VMware and Google KVM. Full details of all of this and more can be found on our partner event on the 21st of January 2015 in London, Mastering the Mid-Market. So this and lots more in full detail will be shown there. So please join us for that, details of which can be found from your account manager, from our website, or from any of the people within Westcon. We'll all know about this event. Please join us for that. So our last thing to do is any questions that you may have that weren't available, please put them in, post them into the window, and we'll see if we can answer anything that's not been answered already. Any questions?
None coming up.
Oh, there's a question. No question. Seems to be no questions, but do email us if you do have any questions afterwards. Can't see any coming up there. But anyway, thank you for joining us. So it's good night from me.
And it's good night from him.
Thank you.